I was offering some encouragement to someone in the kitchen recently, and I said something like, whether you make the best meal or the worst meal, no one's going to remember it tomorrow. And so although maybe that's an exaggeration, maybe we remember yesterday or the day before's meal, likely we don't remember last Saturday's meal a week ago. But in the same conversation, I also noticed that I, shared that I enjoy this person's cooking, that I like their creativity. So even though it wasn't like one particular meal that stands out, it was kind of like this pattern of cooking that I did notice overall as a whole. And reflecting on my own mind, I see that that's kind of how habits are formed. It's not this like one individual thing that I do, but that it's when I do it over and over again that it becomes something that happens then over and over again. And looking at my habits, I see that they often create a lot of misery, but that doesn't have to be that way. They can be the doorway to my afflictions opening, or they can be the doorway to awakening. It's really, we have the capacity to steer our habits in a healthy way. But if you're like me, the habits of the mind of judgment and irritation, of wanting what I want when I want it, those kinds of things are so familiar, and I'm so habituated to them that they just appear like instantly. Some of the other habits I've noticed in my mind are that I'm really easily distracted. I sit down to meditate, and I don't even get started before my mind is distracted on something else. Maybe I'll notice that and bring it back to my breath or to the object of meditation, and then it's probably like 2 minutes later, I'm back in distraction. And it's not just during meditation that this happens, but also when I eat, when I'm offering service, pretty much all the time. When we're doing recitations and prayers, my mind can be somewhere totally different from the activity that my body is engaged in. I am typically kind of ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. Back to cooking, if I have lunch coming up sometime, the timing of things, what recipe, what am I going to make? And these things don't bring any contentment and really just bring me away from what I'm trying to accomplish. Some of the other habits that I have in my mind are that I form opinions about other people. I think I know who they are and what they're like and why they do the things they do. And it's really all about me. I really attribute others' actions and behaviors and attitudes to how they're responding to me. And, they're doing this thing because I'm doing that thing. And maybe sometimes there is a connection there, but oftentimes I think it's just the story in my mind and that I'm in this habit of making very self-centered stories up. It also really goes into this comparing mind, comparing myself to others. And then again, it's all about me. But labeling this as a habit really helps me to see that this is not who I am. This isn't really the nature of my mind. And it helps me get some space to work with this and see that instead of it being some sort of automatic thing that will happen no matter what, that I can see that it is this automatic thing, but I can train my mind so that it doesn't happen automatically. I've been trying to create some new habits and working on this for quite a while. As I was putting together this BBC, I was noticing, I'm like, oh, I think this is what all my other BBCs are on. This is my habit to talk about what's going on in my mind and how I'm working with that. So they're everywhere. The habits just really perpetuate all of my daily existence. So it's really fruitful to catch this and notice when my mind is kind of shifting into this more like tight, familiar space. I can kind of feel a bit like prickly and this irritation. Sometimes if there's others involved, I want to kind of jump in and get into my little micromanaging mind. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And I've been inspired by the teachings these past few weeks of this idea of cultivating contentment and modest desire. Of this, what I've been telling myself is like, okay, just be cool. Just pause. Maybe the problem isn't actually going on with the person or the situation. And if I just am cool and don't say anything, then I'll get more information and things will be fine. And that's really what usually happens. And with this kind of attitude of like, just be cool, I think things are okay, it helps me open up. Like that tightness, I can really feel dissolve, and I can be more open to whatever the other person is doing and have more curiosity and appreciation, and see the good qualities that they're bringing to the situation more than this mind that wants to know everything and tell you what to do and how to do it, that I'm just so familiar with. Another thing I notice if I am looking at cultivating contentment and seeing that my mind is in that kind of agitated place is that when I come back to appreciating that I have all my needs met, that things are going okay, that there's really, nothing that I can do or change, or I don't need to be so finicky or so irritated, that also just helps me relax and stops the mind from continuing on in these ruminating kind of stories. It's like a breath of fresh air to kind of just yeah, okay, I can be okay. And looking at the modest desire, seeing when things come up, like maybe someone gets a cup of tea that smells really nice, maybe someone gets an opportunity, or praise that is awesome. Like if I'm cultivating modest desire in my own heart, then it's much easier for me to rejoice when others are experiencing good things, instead of that kind of jealous mind that starts telling stories and how much I deserve that thing and how much I want that thing. But instead, like, oh yeah, I'm content and I don't really need what they have, and I'm psyched that they have it. And then also working to push back on these ruminating stories is to cultivate a positive regard for others. Because sometimes my stories can get kind of negative and I can see others in a more negative light. And when I notice this, I can be more intentional when I see them in these like small moments, maybe just, passing in the room or something, to think to myself like, oh yeah, there's a Dharma friend. And train myself like His Holiness the Dalai Lama to see others as friends. And even though it's like these really small micro moments that this is happening, I think it really adds up, because I see this big difference in my mind of if I'm kind of going through these small moments in the day of like, then that is kind of the overall flavor. Like that's going to be my overall experience. But when I have these like small moments of like friend, kind person, helper, then that has a totally different experience. And I'm happier myself, and I'm able to contribute to the happiness of others and see where these opportunities are to help others, instead of just being, the mind of like, they can figure it out. That's another habit. And seeing how important it is to constantly work with my mind and bring it back to something virtuous, I am really deepening my appreciation for being here and how much we have this practice of coming back to our bodhicitta aspiration, of really resetting our motivation, and how much more I have to progress to really take full advantage of this opportunity. And just thinking about the 5 contemplations that we recite every day before lunch, like I know these recitations and I'm so glad that we say them, because when I start to eat, I go back into this kind of mindless eating and really, judging the food on how it tastes and whether I like it, and that's kind of my experience. But when I can stay with that contemplation, and even just starting with this first contemplation of contemplating the causes and conditions and the kindness of others by which I have received this food, like how that can change the experience of eating from one of just kind of mindlessly consuming to really having a lot of gratitude for this tremendous web of causes and conditions. I would cultivate more contentment with whatever the food is offered and not have so much, likes or dislikes towards it, because it would just be, so meaningful just to see the kindness of others that are contributing to each and every bite that I have. And keeping this one contemplation in mind, I see would also really help me cultivate these 3 higher trainings that we work to realize in our hearts of ethics, concentration, and wisdom. And so if I'm thinking of all the causes and conditions and the kindness of others that goes into my food, I would probably have more consideration for others, really wanting to repay that kindness because I am receiving it continuously. I'm totally reliant on others, and so would want to be available for others to rely on me. And I would use resources more wisely and not waste them and not overindulge in them either. Keeping my mind focused in this way would also help me develop concentration, just because I have this object that I am, focused on and training myself to come back to instead of sometimes in daily life. Often in daily life, I can get distracted and just kind of stay on this wave of distraction. But being intentional to develop concentration while eating by thinking of these contemplations will help me when I'm meditating, because I'm just really building that concentration, and help me keep my mind in a really virtuous and realistic place. And then it would help me cultivate wisdom and really see dependent arising in action in every single bite. The numerous beings that helped grow the food, pollinate the flowers, harvest, shipping, buying, selling, offering, as well as the causes and conditions to be able to chew and swallow and digest and absorb nutrients. So I would be much wiser if I really could keep my mind just on, this is just one of the ways that we constantly come back to the Dharma throughout the day and to see our situation in our lives through the Buddhist worldview. And so it's really wonderful living here in community where we support each other to develop these healthy habits and really push back on the mind that ruminates and forms opinions and judgments and gets stuck in that. Because for most people, that's the situation that they're in, and they're nurturing these habits that create more discontent and misery. And then when we see that it's not just us who's tossed around by a mind habituated to discontent and distraction, but that it's everyone around us and everyone who contributes to our food and our other daily needs, then our heart can open to really practicing this path, not just for our own happiness and well-being, but so that we can support everyone else to cultivate healthy habits and realistic ways of seeing things, and can experience that lasting peace and happiness as well.